It took them 19 episodes across 2 anime to reintroduce Milim. What the hell, man? Alright, so if you couldn't tell by that cold open, Milim actually comes back in this episode for like the first time this whole season because she wasn't, as I kind of went on a rant in the last review, she kind of wasn't really in the main anime all that much. Like, she was mostly alluded to, and then there was like this one flashback where she fought a dude, and that's it. She hasn't really made any sort of appearance in the main anime up until this point. Actually, not even up to this point. And halfway through Slime Diaries run, we are finally seeing her again. She's at long last shown up in the anime. It took them 19 episodes to do it in this season, but it happened finally. So yeah, with all that out of the way, this episode actually does a pretty good job of showcasing how simultaneously cute and terrifying Milim is. So yeah, it starts off with a quote-unquote recap of all the events that have happened up to this point leading up to them meeting Milim. And although things play out a little bit differently than they do in the main anime, and where Milim shows up, she conquers the nation of Tempest and makes everybody her subordinate. Which isn't actually what happened, and as it turns out, what actually happened is that she fell into a deep sleep after wolfing down an entire bowl of potato chips by herself. And naturally she fell asleep and is dreaming about the idea of not only taking taking over Tempest, but also training Rimuru to become a demon lord. Which, considering what happens late in the second season, kind of foreshadowing considering when this takes place, but or at the very least is alluding to, or is kind of just making it allude to the fact that that's what actually happens. But in case everybody's quick to point out how quickly Milim falls asleep after eating potato chips, and then Rimuru gathers with all of his main followers, and they all discuss who should be in charge of Milim while she's there. And they all unanimously decide that Rimuru should be stuck babysitting her for the entire day. Much to Rimuru's protesting because he doesn't really want to be in charge of a hyperactive demon lord who could kill you by accident. So. Yeah, but in case as they're having this meeting, Milim actually wakes up, pointing out that her dream was just getting good and she's a little bit annoyed, and then becomes a little bit upset that nobody's around. So she goes looking for them, and then eventually barges into the meeting room where they're discussing who takes care of her. Bursts in. Probably exclaims that if Rimuru has decided if he wants to be a demon lord or not, and then proceeds to not only break the door, but send Rimuru flying into the nearby wall and splattering a bit of himself on Benimaru's face. And obviously everybody begins to panic because now the leader is basically stuck to a wall and he can't get himself off. But in case Rimuru is quick to point out that he's not really interested in becoming a demon lord, as he's cleaning himself up, and remarks that even if he was, he's in charge of an entire nation of monsters, so he doesn't really have time to become a demon lord, much less go out of his way to just kind of do whatever the hell he wants, like Milim does. But in case as he's having this conversation with Milim, it's the bell chimes, which means lunch. So everybody begins preparing food for lunch. Mainly Shuna, who is kind of in charge of the whole thing. Shion isn't allowed to go and cook, but she prepares food for everybody, and we quickly find out that Milim is a very picky eater. So as we've established, Milim is kind of a child, or at least psychologically she is. Physically, she's like 1,000 years old or something like that, but. And even Rimuru remarks that she doesn't really need to eat, but she does anyway. And also Benimaru just kind of, and also during this episode, Benimaru just kind of takes after her a little bit at the very beginning because when Rimuru remarks why he would ask for reasons why he should even consider becoming a demon lord, she merely remarks that demon lords can basically make up whatever crazy names for their attacks that they want, simply because they're demon lords and nobody's going to question them anyway. Which everybody seems to be head over heels in love with. But and then it continues into this scene where where neither Benimaru or Milim want to eat the carrots that are placed in front of them. And Benimaru is kind of a picky eater. We've established that, but Milim is also a picky eater simply by virtue of the fact that she's mentally like 12 years old. So yeah, she's not very eager about eating her carrots, and Benimaru takes that as justification for why he shouldn't have to eat his own carrots. Only for Shuna just to kind of completely upend that argument by cutting all of Milim's carrots into fun little shapes, which she then gobbles down no problem, remarking that she'll happily eat 1,000 carrots if they all look like in fun little shapes. And Benimaru is just dismayed because now he definitely doesn't want to eat his carrots, because now, in addition to them just being something he doesn't like to eat, they're also cut into fun little shapes, and he's kind of a manly dude, so obviously he's not going to be as even less enthusiastic to eat his carrots as they were before. But in any case, Sui tells him to just go ahead and eat, and he does. At which point Milim proceeds to just kind of go around town and just kind of meet all the different people that live there. Immediately she has a bit of a reaction with Gabta, who she knocks the fuck out, and for good reason. So Rimuru arrives at the situation after going around town and knows that Milim is kind of hanging around, but she is mostly just keeping an eye on her to make sure she doesn't do him significant property damage. But she knocks him. But in any case, he hears the commotion, sees Milim knock Gabta out and send him flying through a nearby wall in a shop front. And he's quick to point out quick to assume that Gabta had something to do with it, and that it was entirely Gapta's fault. And it was, technically speaking. So what Gabta did. So Gabta, as we've established in this episode, is very horny. He likes. He's very open about the fact that he's very lecherous and thinks about girls a lot. So naturally it comes to a head here when he tells Milim that her dress looks cute, and remarks that it suits her a lot better than the Demon Lord garb she normally wears. It's quick to point out that her garb is kind of built for people who are more voluptuous than what she would normally look like, and that's around that point where she knocked him out. At which point Gabta remarks in the present that he only said what everybody was thinking, and then gets knocked out again by Milim, who then proceeds to wonder whether or not everybody else actually agrees with him, and they're quick to point out that they don't, but it's clear that they're doing so out of fear rather than being perfectly honest. So maybe they think that way. We don't know. Milim is just terrifying, so she just scared everybody into going along with what she's had to say. At which point she realizes that it's snack time and that Shuna had promised to make her snacks. So she flies off to the main building, back to Shuna's place to go eat some snacks. And Shuna meets some, I don't know what they're called. They're like corn muffins, I think. And Milim barges into the room again, destroying another door in the process. And very quickly devours all of the muffins, while Shuna prepares some tea for her. But once she finally comes back with the tea, Milim is knocked out again because she just ate herself into a food coma and is just completely asleep. At which point Shuna just decides to tuck her in on the bed and just decides that she can stay there until she finishes sleeping. At which point Rimuru walks in and points out how good Shuna is to actually getting Milim to do basically what she wants rather than what Milim wants. And Shuna is quick to point out that though Milim is kind of a bit of a chaotic force, she does listen to reason, and it's just a matter of being a kind individual and just looking after her. And that she's also had her fair share of troublemakers in her past. And while it's implied that it may be Benimaru, because Benimaru can be kind of a troublemaker at times, what she's actually referring to is Shion, who then proceeds to take the opportunity to write on Milim's face. So yeah, clearly Shion is just kind of Shion has just set herself up in this series to be kind of a shit stir, and I'm all for it. But in case after Milim wakes up, she proceeds to go to Ranga and decides that she wants to play with him. And Ranga clearly has no choice in the matter. He's quick to point out that he doesn't really have no choice, and he's not really comfortable with Milim petting him at first. Until Milim reveals that she's actually really good at petting animals, and case in point, he just kind of completely melts in her hands. Basically, she finds a perfect sweet spot and is just kind of able to just pet him right in that sweet spot. And he's quick to, and though Ranga isn't happy with the fact that he's kind of, but more the way it's framed, I'm not gonna say it, but the way it's framed, it's very clear that this is pleasureful for him. And he's quick to remark that he hopes Rimuru isn't around, but only for Shion to show up and remark that he's been unfaithful and that she's going to have to tell Rimuru about it, which he despairs at. At which point it then cuts to Rimuru and Shion having a bit of a conversation, and Rimuru, Shion is quick to point out how much trouble Milim is actually worth. Pointing out that she kind of consumes a lot of Rimuru's attention whenever she visits, and that more or less she feels like she wasn't strong enough to keep her at bay, so that Rimuru can actually focus on other things. And when Rimuru believes that it's because Shion cares about him all that much, it's more or less because she actually just wants all the attention herself. At which point Rimuru just kicks her out because she's clearly just being a little bit inappropriate. So, yeah. But in case Milim then goes back to town, and as she's wandering through town, she actually runs into Gabiru. And while initially she has a bit of trouble remembering his name, and they're actually kind of avoiding her for a little bit because she's, as we established, she's kind of dangerous. She eventually does remember Gabiru's name and points out that he is a little bit impressed that she did. And remarks that he's interesting to her, so naturally she's going to try and keep her memory of him. And while he's quick to point out how amazing it is that a demon lord actually remembers him, and his followers even play it up into his ego a little bit. She then grabs him by the scruff and states that she feels like they're fated to meet, or ill-fated, as it were, and asks if he had proclaimed himself a hero at any point. And while everybody's a little bit confused as to what she's talking about, one of his followers eventually does get that, that during the summer festival, Gabiru did declare himself a hero onto the signage, and that's probably what Milim is referring to. But in case Milim decides to, as she's kind of holding onto Gabiru's scruff, she eventually knows somebody that she thinks is a associate of Clayman's, so she sends him flying and then proceeds to bound off on her merry way. And Gabiru is so panicked that he can't actually get his wings out, so he just crashes into the commemorative statue celebrating the founding of Tempest, and it's completely destroyed because of that. At which point it's revealed that she was actually looking at Geld, and is a little bit curious as to what he's doing, pointing out that he's essentially the Orc Lord, and is a little bit confused as to why he's actually building houses instead of, conquering, like an Orc Lord would do. And he's quick to point out that there's actually a bit of a silent victory in actually going in and building something to leave behind, and that this is ultimately a job assigned to him, and that he loves doing it, so he doesn't really mind. And Milim is able to take some quite solace in that, pointing out that she can kind of relate to that point, that it's not just about conquering, but rather just building things that other people can enjoy. And she decides to watch for a little bit more. And as she is doing that, Rigard actually barges into Rimuru's office with a list of property damage that Milim has accumulated throughout the day. And while it's clear that Rigard denies being angry about the fact that he personally has to repair every single thing that Milim has broken up to this point, it comes even more and more apparent every time Rimuru asks him that it's clear that he's actually quite furious. So he then decides that he's going to talk to her, but then he finds out that there's actually a piece of property damage that he can actually help with, and that the sign for a trainee's bar was actually destroyed. Or more accurately, it looks like it had a giant bite taken out of it. So So he decides to go and investigate that and repair it. And when he gets there, he discovers that Milim is actually fast asleep and that Trini has already tucked her in. And Trini is quick to point out that she clearly has exhausted herself by meeting so many new people and just wandering around town and seeing so many new places. And Rimuru points out that he feels like she's being treated as kind of a child, and Trini isn't quick to shy away from that. She quickly quite points out that more or less Milim is a child, but that's okay because she's allowed to be a child. She's allowed to just have a carefree attitude toward the world, and it's allowed to just go around and do basically whatever she wants and have a sense of freedom in that regard. And is quick and points out that Rimuru once upon a time used to have that kind of goal, and Rimuru doesn't deny that, but also remarks that well, he's the leader of a nation now, so he can't really go around exercising her quote-unquote freedom, as it were. So for that reason, he just kind of restrains himself and make sure she doesn't get into any trouble. But after finishing the sign, he then proceeds to carry Milim home on piggyback to the guest room at his house. I guess you could call it. And as he's doing that, Ifrit and Veldora actually chime in because they're currently in Rimuru's stomach at the time this anime is kind of going around. But Veldora claims outrage at the fact that Milim is being carried around on piggyback, and Ifrit claims that it is kind of undignified, and is a little bit surprised that even another Calamity class thinks it's undignified. But as it turns out, no, that's not actually what's happening. As it turns out, Veldora is very jealous of the fact that Milim's getting a piggyback ride and he isn't. So yeah, that's just kind of a thing. Veldora wants a piggyback ride and he can't because he's currently stuck in Rimuru's body as he works to dissolve the magic barrier around him. So yeah, unfortunately that's just Veldora's fantasy. He wants to have a piggyback ride and he can't. But in case, as Rimuru is carrying Milim home, Milim just kind of half wakes up, and asks Rimuru if he feels like it's all worth it to actually build everything up and make so many friends. And Rimuru is quick to point out that he's actually proud of it, and that he does like doing it. So he doesn't really mind if it gets a little bit big. So as long as he can continue to grow and make more and more friends, then that's all really matters to him. But Milim points out that also is kind of a double-edged sword because on the one hand, yes, you can make a lot of friends, but on the other hand, those are very fragile bonds, and that eventually something is going to come along that's going to wreck everybody's day. And indeed, that actually does happen in the second season. So yeah. But Milim points out that if she hadn't been in a situation where she could potentially lose all of her friends, she would be pretty scared. At which point Rimuru just tells her to go back to sleep because she's clearly just so that she can just kind of not worry about that kind of stuff. But I guess it cuts to the next morning and Rimuru walks in to go check on Milim and she's gone. And Rimuru is a little bit sad about that because he knows that he had a conversation with Milim last night about how clearly she's a little bit terrified about being alone in the world and about all the bonds that she forms with other people, and wonders if she left because of that. Only for her to barge in and yet again break another door. Only for her to barge in again and with a bag full of fruit, and remarking that she actually got them for fixing a fence, and also that she apologized for breaking said fence in the first place, but beside the point. And Rimuru points out that he thought she left because of what she said last night. And she quickly points out that she has no idea what he's talking about, and then proceeds to just kind of decide that they're going to continue to play for a little while. And then she proceeds to pick him up, throw him out the window, much to his chagrin. So yeah, as I said at the start of this episode, this is the first time we've seen Milim all season. So yes, that's exciting. But it also but one of the first episodes she's prominently featured in showcases her how terrifying she is as a person. On the one hand, she's very much a child and can be reasoned like you would a child. But on the other hand, she's also a hyperactive demon lord who can easily knock a building over with an errant fart. So yeah, she's very dangerous in that regard. And this episode just kind of showcases the duality of her because yeah, on the one hand she can destroy entire buildings, but on the other hand she doesn't mean to. She's literally just going about her business, and the fact that she's just she's basically a hyperactive 12-year-old in a 1,000-year-old person's body, and with the power to basically destroy anything she touches is kind of terrifying, and that's just kind of the scary duality of Milim a little bit. She's strong enough to knock down a building with one punch, but she really doesn't mean it. She's just she doesn't know any better. She's literally just a child who just goes around, goes about her business, and just destroy things by accident. So, yeah, overall, that's what this episode was. Just showcasing how Milim is kind of a nuanced character in that she's a hyperactive child that can knock buildings down without much effort, but she's also kind of mature in that regard as well, because she's, as this episode also showcases, she's in fact very smart and despite being a child at heart, she is indeed quite mature for her age, which, considering she's over 1,000, it makes perfect sense that she would be kind of mature for her age. But in any case, that's my review. At that time, I got reincarnated as a slime. What do you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. I post video links and updates over there so that you guys will always be able to see them, even when the sub boxes don't really send them to you, because that's a thing that happens some of the time. And also, if you guys want to help support me even further, be sure to check out my Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks, and I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Basically, it's if you guys support me, I'll support you kind of thing. But if you do support me over there, then I will list you on my website, along with a couple of other perks, depending on how much money you actually pledge to me a month. But there's also a thing. There's also a thing over there where you guys can see written reviews I make, because sometimes I try to go sit down for a game, but I can't always make a let's play out of it. So I just kind of write down my thoughts rather than just kind of trying to convey them in a video. So yeah, hopefully you guys will go and help support that. I only have the one up there right now, and if it does, hopefully you guys will take to that format a little bit more, because I've been trying to work more on it, and hopefully more people will go and watch those, but go and watch and read those. But and also, go check that out. And also, I have a Twitch if you guys want to go help support me over there. I'm going to be streaming Miitopia this coming Sunday, so if you guys want to go see that, then by all means go ahead. It's actually a lot of fun, and I am starting to get a couple of people over there because apparently Miitopia is just really popular on Twitch. It's actually a pretty perfect game to stream, so it wound up being perfect over there. And finally, if you guys want to see more videos from me, then be sure to check out the links in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom one is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you just want to see more of what you like, or try something completely different, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!